Imagine this. You step onto an alien world where every second can stretch into years or collapse into moments, all depending on where you stand. For one human researcher, this nightmare becomes reality when he lands on a planet where time itself has gone rogue. But salvation comes from an unexpected source, a mysterious local girl whose powers defy logic and who sees time as more than just numbers on a clock. Together, they'll navigate a labyrinth of temporal chaos, only to discover that their fleeting connection might be the most dangerous force of all. Will they find a way out before time tears them apart forever? Stay tuned till the end to uncover how far love can bend the rules of existence. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss our next mind-bending tale. The dropship shuddered violently as it pierced through the atmosphere of Zephyria 7, its hull glowing red-hot against the friction. Captain Elias Voss gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white despite years of training for such landings. This mission was supposed to be routine, a quick survey of uncharted terrain, but something about this planet had already set off alarms long before touchdown. As the ship descended, the sensors began behaving erratically, flickering between readings that made no sense. One moment, the surface temperature registered as scorching hot. The next, it plummeted to sub-zero levels. Elias frowned, staring at the holographic display hovering above the dashboard. "This place doesn't play, by any known physics," he muttered under his breath. Beneath him, the landscape shifted unnaturally, like oil spilled across water. Rivers seemed to flow both upstream and downstream simultaneously, while clouds lingered midair, frozen in place. His stomach churned, not from the turbulence, but from the growing suspicion that whatever awaited him below would challenge everything he thought he knew about time and space. When the ship finally touched down, the silence outside was deafening. Stepping onto the surface felt surreal, almost dreamlike. The ground beneath his boots appeared solid enough, yet the horizon rippled faintly, as if viewed through heat waves. He activated his wrist scanner, which immediately started spitting out contradictory data. According to the device, some patches of ground were millions of years old, while others hadn't existed 5 minutes ago. It didn't add up. Nothing did. And then, just as panic began creeping into his thoughts, movement caught his eye, a figure standing not far away, watching him intently. She emerged slowly from behind a jagged rock formation, her presence both mesmerizing and unsettling. Her skin glowed faintly, as though infused with starlight, and her hair cascaded down her back in waves that shimmered with hues of silver and gold. What struck Elias most, however, were her eyes, deep pools of violet that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression that hovered somewhere between curiosity and caution. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic quality that sent shivers down his spine. Though her words sounded simple, there was an underlying weight to them, as if she carried knowledge far beyond what anyone could comprehend. "I'm conducting research," Elias replied hesitantly, unsure whether to trust her or prepare for danger. "Who are you?" "My name is Lyra," she answered, stepping closer. "And I know why your machines are confused. Time isn't linear here. It fractures, overlaps, and loops endlessly. Your kind calls it chaos, but we call it life." Her explanation left him reeling. Fractured time? Overlapping loops? None of it aligned with anything he'd studied during his career. Yet, looking around, he couldn't deny the evidence. Shadows moved independently of light sources, plants bloomed and withered within seconds, and distant mountains seemed to shift positions without warning. If Lyra truly understood this madness, then she was his best chance of survival. "Can you help me understand this place?" he asked, lowering his guard slightly. Lyra smiled faintly, though sadness lingered in her gaze. "I can try, but beware, time here doesn't forgive mistakes." Over the next few hours, or what Elias assumed were hours, Lyra guided him through the bewildering landscape. With each step, she demonstrated abilities that defied explanation. She could pause falling leaves midair, rewind the growth of a flower, or even speed up the decay of a nearby boulder until it crumbled into dust. Watching her manipulate time felt like witnessing magic, yet she claimed it wasn't power. It was instinct. This is how we survive, she explained as they walked. Every region has its own rhythm. Some areas move faster, others slower. If you stay too long in one spot, you risk aging decades or vanishing entirely. Elias struggled to keep up, both physically and mentally. Every direction looked identical, yet Lyra navigated effortlessly, her movements graceful and deliberate. Occasionally, she stopped to touch objects, a tree trunk, a patch of moss, and closed her eyes, as if listening to whispers only she could hear. When he asked what she was doing, she simply replied, listening to time's heartbeat. Despite her cryptic answers, Elias found himself drawn to her. There was a quiet strength in her demeanor, a resilience born from living in constant flux. He admired her adaptability, even as fear gnawed at the edges of his mind. How could anyone live like this? How could anyone endure the unpredictability of a world where every second held infinite possibilities? As night fell, or what passed for night here, the sky erupted into swirling colors, stars appearing and disappearing randomly.
Lyra pointed upward.
See those constellations? They're memories of past timelines. Each one tells a story. Elias stared, awestruck. For the first time since arriving, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this journey wouldn't end in disaster after all. Days turned into weeks, or perhaps mere hours. Elias couldn't tell anymore. Under Lyra's guidance, he learned to recognize subtle signs of temporal shifts, the way air vibrated differently near fast-flowing zones, the faint hum of energy emanating from slow ones. He marveled at her ability to read these cues effortlessly, wondering if he'd ever reach her level of mastery. Their bond deepened with each passing day. Conversations grew longer, laughter became frequent, and silences ceased to feel awkward. Lyra revealed snippets of her life, how her people revered time as a deity, how children were taught to respect its unpredictable nature, and how outsiders rarely survived without guidance. In return, Elias shared stories of Earth, describing bustling cities, serene forests, and the comforting monotony of linear time. One evening, as they rested near a crystalline lake, Elias dared to ask a question that had lingered in his mind. "Why do you help me? You barely know me." Lyra gazed at him, her violet eyes reflecting the shimmering water. "Because you remind me of someone I lost. Someone who once believed in me when no one else did." Her admission caught him off guard. For the first time, he saw vulnerability in her, a crack in the armor of confidence she wore so well. It made her seem more human, more relatable. And it ignited a spark within him, one he hadn't felt in years, the desire to protect someone, even if it meant risking everything. As their journey continued, Elias began noticing changes, not just in himself, but in Lyra too. She seemed less guarded, more willing to share intimate details about her past. He learned about her childhood spent exploring forbidden zones, her struggles to control her powers, and her eventual exile from her tribe after accidentally erasing an entire village from existence. "That's why I live alone now," she confessed during one particularly raw conversation.
"I'm dangerous.
"Even to those I care about." Elias shook his head vehemently. "You saved me. Without you, I'd have been lost or worse. Whatever happened before, it doesn't define you." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of unspoken emotions pressing down on them. Then, tentatively, Lyra reached out and took his hand. Her touch sent a jolt through him. Not just because of the warmth, but because of the realization dawning within him. He was falling for her. But their budding romance faced an insurmountable obstacle, time itself. No matter how strong their feelings, the erratic flow of temporal energy threatened to tear them apart. One misstep, one wrong decision, and they could find themselves separated by centuries, or erased altogether. Yet, instead of pushing them apart, the danger brought them closer. They vowed to face whatever lay ahead together, clinging to the fragile hope that love could transcend even the harshest laws of physics. The days, or what passed for days, grew stranger as they ventured deeper into the heart of Zephyria. 7. Elias and Lyra found themselves traversing landscapes that defied imagination, forests where trees grew downward into the sky, rivers that flowed uphill in spirals, and valleys filled with echoes of events that had never happened. Each step felt like walking through a dream, one that shifted unpredictably beneath their feet. Lyra warned him constantly to stay close. "Don't wander off," she said sternly, her voice tinged with urgency. "Even a few meters can mean years lost or gained." Elias nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows moved where no light source existed, and faint whispers seemed to drift on the wind, speaking in languages he didn't understand. It wasn't fear exactly. It was something more primal, a deep-seated awareness that this planet was alive in ways he couldn't comprehend. One afternoon, or so he assumed, they stumbled upon a clearing where time appeared to stand still entirely. The air shimmered like heat waves, distorting everything within it. A single flower hovered mid-bloom, frozen in an eternal moment. "This is a temporal nexus," Lyra explained, her tone reverent. "Places like these are rare and dangerous. They're where all timelines converge, where past, present, and future collide." Elias stepped closer, mesmerized. He reached out tentatively, his fingers brushing the edge of the distortion. The sensation was indescribable, a rush of cold and warmth at once, accompanied by flashes of images that didn't belong to him. He saw glimpses of futures he could barely grasp, cities floating among stars, civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye, and himself standing alone on a barren wasteland. Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him back sharply. "You can't touch it," she snapped, her violet eyes blazing. "It'll consume you, if you're not careful." He stumbled backward, shaken but unharmed. What did I see?" "Possibilities," she replied softly. "Futures that may or may not come true. But possibilities have weight here. They can trap you, pull you into loops you'll never escape." Her words sent a chill down his spine. For the first time, he realized just how fragile their existence truly was, and how much trust he'd placed in someone who barely understood her own powers. As they continued their journey, Elias began noticing changes in himself. His perception of time started to blur, moments stretched unnaturally long, while others passed in the blink of an eye. At first, he dismissed it as exhaustion, but Lyra's concerned glances told him otherwise. "You're adapting," she said one evening as they rested near a glowing pond. "Your mind is trying to synchronize with the planet's rhythm. It's not easy for outsiders."
Adapting?
The thought unsettled him. Was he losing himself to this alien world? He looked at his hands, half expecting them to flicker like static, but they remained solid for now. Lyra leaned closer, her expression softening. "It's not a bad thing, Elias. You're learning to see time differently. Most people are trapped in its linearity, but here, you can experience it as it truly is, fluid, infinite, unpredictable." Her words resonated deeply, even as doubt lingered in his mind. What if he couldn't return to Earth? What if this place claimed him forever? Their conversation turned introspective as the night wore on. Lyra spoke of her own struggles to control her abilities, admitting that she often feared becoming overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of time's currents. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm meant to exist at all," she confessed quietly. "If my powers are a curse rather than a gift." Elias took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You saved me when no one else could. That's not a curse. That's strength." For a brief moment, she smiled, and he felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to navigate this chaos together. Their travels led them to a region known as the Shattered Expanse, a desolate plain littered with fragments of broken timelines. Here, remnants of alternate realities lay scattered like forgotten memories, rusted spacecraft from civilizations that never existed, skeletal remains of creatures too bizarre to imagine, and crumbling ruins etched with indecipherable symbols. "This place is haunted," Lyra murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, "by ghosts of what could have been." Elias felt a pang of unease as they walked among the debris. Every artifact seemed to carry a story, each one whispering secrets of paths not taken. He knelt beside a shard of metal engraved with strange markings, running his fingers over its surface. Suddenly, a vision struck him, a vivid, overwhelming flood of images showing a war-torn planet consumed by fire. Elias. Lyra's voice snapped him back to reality. She grabbed his shoulders, steadying him as he gasped for breath. "What was that?" he demanded, his heart racing. "A memory," she replied grimly, "from a timeline that collapsed under its own weight. Be careful. These fragments are unstable. Touching them can drag you into their stories." Despite her warnings, Elias couldn't resist examining another artifact, a crystalline sphere pulsating with faint light. As soon as his skin made contact, he was plunged into a new vision, a thriving metropolis suspended in zero gravity, its inhabitants living in harmony with machines. The scene was breathtaking, but it dissolved abruptly, leaving behind only emptiness. When he returned to the present, Lyra was staring at him with a mixture of pity and resolve. "You're drawn to them," she said, "but you can't keep chasing shadows. Not here." Her words stung, but she was right. This place was toxic, feeding on curiosity and longing. Reluctantly, they pressed onward, leaving the shattered expanse behind, but not before Elias stole one last glance at the haunting relics. The further they traveled, the more Elias noticed how intertwined their fates had become. Their bond transcended mere companionship. It was as if their very essences were sinking, blending in response to the chaotic forces around them. Sometimes, when they touched, Elias swore he could feel echoes of Lyra's emotions rippling through him, her joy, her sorrow, her fears. One day, as they crossed a field of bioluminescent grass, Lyra stopped suddenly, her body rigid with tension. "What's wrong?" Elias asked, concern etched across his face. "I feel it," she whispered, her gaze darting around. "Something's coming." Before he could respond, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The grass flared brighter, illuminating the sky with eerie hues of blue and green. From the horizon emerged a massive entity, a serpentine creature composed entirely of shifting temporal energy. Its form twisted and writhed, impossible to focus on for more than a second. "That's a Time Warden," Lyra breathed, her voice trembling. "Guardians of the planet's flow. They don't like intruders." The creature lunged, its movements impossibly fast. Lyra reacted instantly, raising her hands to create a barrier of golden light. The force of the impact sent shockwaves rippling outward, knocking Elias off his feet. "Run," she shouted, her voice strained with effort. "No," he yelled back, scrambling to his feet. "I'm not leaving you." Against all logic, he charged toward her, grabbing her hand as the creature prepared for another strike. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. Their combined energies surged, creating a blinding flash that engulfed the area. When the light faded, the Time Warden was gone, and both Elias and Lyra collapsed to the ground, exhausted but alive. "How did we do that?" Elias panted, staring at her in disbelief. "I don't know," Lyra admitted, her violet eyes wide with awe. "But whatever just happened, it changed us." In the aftermath of their encounter with the Time Warden, Elias and Lyra found themselves irrevocably altered. Their connection had deepened, transcending physical boundaries. They could sense each other's presence without looking, anticipate each other's thoughts without speaking. It was as if their very souls had merged, creating a symbiotic link that defied explanation. But with this newfound unity came challenges. Their synchronized energies attracted unwanted attention, not just from Time Wardens, but from other anomalies scattered across the planet. Temporal storms erupted without warning, hurling them into fragmented timelines where cause and effect unraveled completely. Entire days would vanish in the blink of an eye, only to reappear hours later with no explanation. "It's getting worse," Lyra said one night as they huddled inside a makeshift shelter. "The planet senses our bond. It's testing us." "Testing us for what?" Elias asked, his voice tinged with frustration. For whether we deserve to stay, she replied cryptically. Zephyria, 7 isn't just a world, it's a living entity, and it doesn't take kindly to outsiders disrupting its balance. Her words weighed heavily on him. Had their relationship upset some cosmic order? Were they doomed to be torn apart by forces beyond their control? Despite the uncertainty, their determination only grew stronger. Together, they devised strategies to navigate the increasing instability, mapping safe zones, developing signals to warn each other of impending shifts, and honing their shared abilities to withstand the planet's trials. Through it all, their love became a beacon of hope, anchoring them amidst the chaos. Yet, as they pressed forward, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was building towards something monumental, something that would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. The days, or what remained of them, began to blur into one another as Elias and Lyra ventured closer to the planet's core, a region Lyra referred to as the temporal nexus. According to her fragmented memories and whispered legends passed down through her people, this was where time itself originated, a swirling maelstrom of infinite possibilities that gave birth to Zephyria 7's chaotic rhythms. It's dangerous, Lyra warned as they approached the edge of a canyon filled with shimmering, kaleidoscopic light. No one who enters ever comes back unchanged if they come back at all. Elias studied her face, noting the fear in her violet eyes. For someone who had lived her entire life navigating fractured timelines, even she seemed hesitant to step into this abyss. Yet there was no turning back now. The anomalies were growing more frequent, their combined energy drawing the planet's wrath like a magnet. If they didn't confront whatever lay at the heart of this chaos, they risked being consumed entirely. What happens if we don't go? Elias asked quietly, his voice barely audible over the hum of temporal energy emanating from the canyon. We die, Lyra replied simply. Or worse, we become part of the planet, fragments of consciousness trapped in endless loops. Is that what you want? He shook his head, resolve hardening within him. Whatever awaited them below, it couldn't be worse than losing himself, or losing her. Hand in hand, they descended into the glowing chasm, the air thick with an otherworldly tension that made every breath feel heavier than the last. Inside the temporal nexus, reality unraveled completely. Time ceased to exist as a linear concept. Moments collided and splintered, creating a kaleidoscope of overlapping events. Elias saw glimpses of his own life flashing before him, not just the past but potential futures, standing alone on Earth, surrounded by loved ones who had long since passed, leading humanity to new frontiers among the stars, fading into obscurity, forgotten by history. Each vision tugged at his soul, tempting him to linger, to lose himself in the possibilities. Lyra struggled beside him, her powers strained to their limits as she tried to shield them both from the overwhelming currents. Her hair whipped wildly around her face, strands of it dissolving into golden mist only to reform seconds later. She screamed something he couldn't hear over the roar of collapsing timelines, but he understood instinctively. Hold on. Together, they pushed forward, fighting against the pull of countless alternate realities trying to claim them. With each step, Elias felt pieces of himself slipping away, memories fading, emotions dulling, but Lyra's grip kept him grounded. Their bond acted as an anchor, tethering them to the present moment even as everything else dissolved into chaos. Finally, they reached the center of the nexus, a massive orb of pure temporal energy, pulsating with the rhythm of a heartbeat. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once, radiating power so immense it threatened to overwhelm them. This is it, Lyra gasped, her voice trembling. This is the source of everything. What do we do? Elias shouted, clutching her hand tighter. We stop running, she said, tears streaming down her face. We let it take us. Before Elias could protest, Lyra stepped toward the orb, dragging him with her. As soon as they touched its surface, a surge of energy engulfed them, lifting them off their feet and pulling them into its depths. Inside, they found themselves floating in a void where time stood still, or perhaps moved infinitely fast. Every memory, Every emotion, every fragment of existence swirled around them like stardust, forming constellations of meaning. You can see it now, can't you? Lyra whispered, her voice echoing as though spoken from multiple directions at once. Elias nodded, though he wasn't sure she could see him. He understood now why Zephyria 7 behaved the way it did. It wasn't chaos, it was freedom. Here, time wasn't bound by rules or constraints. It flowed naturally, organically, adapting to the needs of those who lived within it. But such freedom came at a cost: instability, unpredictability, and the constant threat of dissolution. "Is this where your people came from?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "No," Lyra replied. "They adapted to it just like I have. But I've never seen anyone else, anyone human, survive here without breaking." Her words struck a chord deep within him. Was he truly surviving, or was he merely delaying the inevitable? The thought terrified him, yet he couldn't bring himself to let go, not while she was still holding on to him. As they floated together, suspended in eternity, Elias realized something profound. Love wasn't about clinging to stability or seeking permanence. It was about embracing uncertainty, finding beauty in impermanence, and trusting that connection, even fleeting, was worth the risk. With newfound clarity, he turned to Lyra. "If this is where we belong, then let's stay. Together." Their decision seemed to resonate throughout the nexus, triggering a reaction neither of them anticipated. The orb began to pulse more intensely, its light expanding outward until it filled the entire void. Memories and emotions poured out of them, merging with the planet's essence. In that moment, Elias felt his identity dissolve, not disappearing, but becoming something greater, something infinite. When the light finally subsided, they found themselves back on the surface of Zephyria 7, standing in the same clearing where they had first encountered the Time Warden. Everything looked different now, the colors brighter, the air lighter, the ground steadier beneath their feet. "What happened?" Elias asked, blinking against the brilliance of the sky. "We merged with the planet," Lyra explained, her voice calm but tinged with wonder. "It accepted us, not as outsiders, but as part of itself." Elias looked at her, noticing subtle changes in her appearance. Her skin glowed faintly, her eyes sparkled with newfound depth, and her presence felt larger, somehow. He wondered if he appeared the same to her. "So, does this mean we're safe now?" he asked cautiously. "For now," she replied. "But remember, Zephyria 7 is alive. It will always test us, always push us to grow. That's its nature, and ours, too." Despite the uncertainty, Elias felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt despite everything they'd endured. Together, they walked toward the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Months, or perhaps centuries, passed in blissful harmony. Elias and Lyra continued exploring the planet, learning its secrets and sharing their discoveries with each other. Though the temporal anomalies persisted, they no longer feared them. Instead, they embraced the unpredictability, finding joy in the endless possibilities it offered. One evening, as they sat beneath a sky filled with shifting constellations, Elias turned to Lyra with a question that had lingered in his mind for some time. "Do you think we'll ever leave this place?" She smiled softly, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. "We already have. Not physically, maybe, but in every way that matters. This planet changed us, Elias. It taught us to live beyond limits, to love beyond logic. Isn't that enough?" He nodded, feeling a warmth spread through him. She was right. Whether they stayed on Zephyria 7 or returned to Earth someday, their journey had transformed them in ways they could never undo. As they gazed up at the fractured heavens, Elias realized something important. Time might bend, twist, and break, but love, true, unyielding love, could weather any storm. And in that knowledge, he found the courage to keep moving forward, hand in hand with the woman who had shown him the true meaning of eternity. Thank you for watching this incredible tale of love and resilience across the boundaries of time. If you enjoyed this story, Please consider subscribing to our channel for more mind-bending adventures that challenge the limits of imagination.
See you next time.